morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice for Radio, and I'm afraid we need to interrupt our ongoing coverage of all of the new cards from Infinity Zone to bring you news that the deck list from the battle decks, League battle decks, have been leaked out, have been revealed, and they are even better than we thought they might be. They are ridiculous. Now, I was made aware of this by the lovely Stephen Kent. He has actually got a YouTube channel he's growing up at the moment, doing a bunch of streaming. I'll pop a link in the description. Do go and check him out. Lovely dude. And he got the images from Alpha Tester over on Facebook. Again, I'll link that in the description. And what we see here is decks, and we knew that these League Battle decks, right? We knew that the plan was that they were going to be really good decks that were supposed to be entryways for people to actually start playing even better decks, and for newer players to get good decks really quickly. But we didn't expect them to be this good. I mean, one of the things that lovely Stephen Kent has said, he won a League Cup with Reshiram and Charizard, and basically the Reshiram and Charizard list that we're getting in these decks is about 8 cards different from the one that he won a League Cup with. We have talked about these before. You get yourself a little paper deck box, some markers and tokens and coins and all of that stuff, and a rule, but we're not worrying about that for now. We are worrying about the list. And we're going to start off with Pikachu and Zekrom because this one is nuts. Now, we knew we were getting 2 copies of Pikachu and Zekrom. That is the really good Pokemon that for free energy does 150 while accelerating free energy, and then has a GX attack that does 200 to the active, plus 170 to a bench Pokemon. That's really good. We also knew we were getting a copy of Raichu and Alolan Raichu, another really good tag team Pokemon. If it became active this turn, free energy, 160 plus paralysis. These are good Pokemon. We were not expecting a full 4 copies of Jirachi. Now, I've talked about Jirachi a lot over the past few years, since it's been released. It's been one of the best cards we've got. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck, if it's in the active, find a trainer card, put it into your hand, then Jirachi goes to sleep. It has been at the absolute center of the metagame, basically since it came out. It is ridiculous, and the fact that we're getting a play set of them in the Pikachu and Zekrom deck is frankly over the top great. We got 2 in one of the previous decks along these lines, and that was amazing. Getting a play set is silly. You also get yourself a copy of the Zapdos, presumably the one from Team Up. That's the one that if it came active this turn, it does 80 damage. Still played as a one-off in a bunch of decks. You're getting yourself Hooper, presumably the one from Unified Minds. Single energy, 10 damage plus 20 for each of your opponent's Pokemon with an ability. Again, this is a card that we see teched in as a one-off into a lot of decks, Pikachu and Zekrom or otherwise. And that's one thing we need to bear in mind here. This isn't just for Pikachu and Zekrom decks if you want to play them. It is also giving you cards you can use in other decks if you like. You got a copy of Electros here. No, it's not some random stage 2 they've put in to ruin the deck. It's got the ability whereby if you've got at least 4 lightning energy cards in play, you may play it straight down even though it's a stage 2 and move as much lightning energy as you like over to it. Oh yeah, that's pretty gosh darn good. Now, there is a copy of IPOM in here, and I will be honest with you, right? IPOM is not necessarily the best card ever, but it says that once during your turn before you attack, you may put the top card of your opponent's deck on the bottom of their deck without looking at it. So if they've used one of those cards that puts a good card on top of their deck, you can then put it on the bottom of their deck and kind of annoy them, and it has got to be that IPOM incidentally. So that's kind of fun. And you get yourself a Tapu Koko Prism Star, which is the one that lets you Lost Zone it from the bench, and then you get to attach 2 lightning energy, 1 to each of 2 benched Pokemon. One of the things to point out here is that this is a post-rotation list. This is sneakily post-rotation. There are, as far as I can see, unless I've missed something, and if I have, let me know in the comment section, there are no cards in this deck which are not surviving the rotation. That, incidentally, is why I think we don't get Thunder Mountain or Electro Power in the deck, because they're being rotated. This is a really, really nice Pokemon line. And then it just keeps going when we get to the trainers. You get 3 copies of Professor's Research. Yeah, it's the best draw supporter we're going to have post-rotation. Discard your hand, draw 7 cards. We're all going to need a playset of it. This gives you 3. And we also get 2 copies of Marnie, which is another one of the very, very best supporters post-rotation. In fact, it is probably the other best one. Both players shuffle their hands, put them on the bottom of their deck. You get 5 cards, your opponent gets 4. That sees a huge amount of play. You get 4 copies of Pokegear 3.0, which lets you look at the top 7 cards of your deck, find a supporter, put it in your hand. And this is played as a 4 in a bunch of decks, because you need to be able to find your supporters. Now, you get 2 copies of Quick Ball, and if I'm picking some holes, 4 Quick Ball would be better to get your basics out. Discard a card from your hand, search your deck for a basic Pokemon, put it in your hand. But come on, we can't really be nitpicking here. 2 copies of Mallow and Lana, that's the supporter that lets you switch and heal 120. You're playing a tag team deck, you're going to want to heal. And the reason we don't see more Quick Ball is because we see a couple copies, in fact 3 copies, of Electromagnetic Radar, the card that lets you search out your Lightning EX and GX Pokemon, which you're going to want to do here because they're your main attackers. We've got 4 copies of Switch, bearing in mind we're playing for Jirachi. We need to get it in and out of the active. Again, there's no escape board here because these decks seem to be very deliberately keeping post-rotation. 3 copies of Pokemon Communication for other Pokemon search options here, which is very nice. It means you can get things like the Electros that you would otherwise be struggling to get. 2 copies of Energy Switch, which is sneakily a really good card here. It lets you switch an energy from one of your Pokemon to another, but if you want to try and get the turn 1 free energy on a Pikachu and Zekrom, you need to be able to energy switch from Tapu Koko, so that's kind of nice. We do see 1 copy of Rotom Bike of all things. It lets you draw until you got 6 cards in hand, and then your turn ends. But actually, this is really nice. Because if you're going first and you've got nothing to do on turn 1 because you can't attack and you can't use a supporter, this has got your back. Or if you're just having a bad turn and can't attack anyway, this has very much got your back. You got 2 copies of Reset Stamp. Make sure opponents shuffle their hand into their deck and draw a number of cards equal to their remaining prizes. Yeah, decks play 1 or 2 of them like every deck at the moment. 2 copies of Vitality Band to do a little bit of extra damage. 2 copies of Erica's Hospitality. That's the one that lets you draw a card for each of your opponent's Pokemon in play if you've got 4 or fewer cards in hand. Again, post-rotation, this is one of the best supporters we've got, so it's nice to have a couple copies of that. 2 copies of Tag Switch here. Tag Switch lets you move energy from a tag team Pokemon to another. 2 energy, in fact. And you're relying on tag team Pokemon here. 2 copies of Ordinary Rod, which is the best card we've got here for recovery. Lets you get 2 Pokemon and 2 energy back into your deck. This is what people play. And 1 copy of Air Balloon to reduce your retreat cost by 2. Again, this is what people play. Along then with 11 Lightning Energy. This isn't some random theme deck that's been chucked together. This is a genuine post-rotation Pikachu and Zekrom deck. This is like someone has actually sat down and tried to make a post-rotation Pikachu and Zekrom deck, and it's really good. All of these cards will survive the rotation and be around for at least another year. And there are so many cards like Professor's Research, Quick Ball, etc., which you are going to want to put in a bunch of other decks. Now, moving over into the Reshiram and Charizard deck, it's not quite as good, but let's be clear here, it's still a great deck. You've got 2 copies of Reshiram and Charizard, that's your big bad attacker here. 4 energy, 230, not to mention a 2 energy outrage attack, so if you're not 1-hit KO'd, you hit them back harder. And then you've got 1 copy of Charizard and Breaks In, which again is generally only played as a one-off. 4 energy, 180 damage, and you get to search your deck for any free cards and put them into your hand. Not to mention a GX attack that can accelerate 5 energy from the discard, not too bad. We then see only one other Pokemon, and it is 4 copies of Volcanion. But this is the Volcanion that accelerates energy. 1 if you're not going second on your first turn, 3 if you are. But if you've got 4 energy on the field, you do 110 for 2 energy. You got to have 2 energy at least somewhere else. Or I suppose on Volcanion, just in addition to the 2 energy you need on Volcanion. And then what we see here is, well, hang on a second, this is how people play the deck. They play it with the tag teams and just 4 copies of Volcanion. Again, there are other things we play, but this is post-rotation. Don't be expecting Victini Prism Star, that is going to rotate out. And then it is just Green's Reshiram. We've got 4 copies of Green's Exploration. You cannot have any abilities in play if you play this, and then you get to search your deck for any 2 trainer cards and put them into your hand. Now, a lot of people prefer the ability version of this, but maybe post-rotation it's not going to be as good. And then we got 4 copies of Welder, lets you attach 2 fire energy from your hand and draw 3 cards. Yeah, they would be your supporter line here, again with 4 copies of Pokegear 3.0 here, so that you can find them nice and quickly. We see 3 copies of Pokemon Catcher. This is apparently your gusting that we're seeing in this deck. Flip a coin if head, swap with one of your opponents benched. It's a viable gusting option, maybe not the best, but then again, you're so supporter reliant in this deck, maybe Boss's Orders wouldn't be a good call anyway. 2 copies of Mallow and Lana, we've talked about that. And 2 copies of Cynthia and Caitlyn let you recover supporters while drawing 3 cards. Bearing in mind this is a deck that is so reliant on Welder, you are going to want to recover supporters here. We see 2 copies of Giant Half. This will be your stadium of choice. You discard a card from your hand, you search your deck for 2 fire energy. Yes, that is exactly what you would want to do here. We've then got 2 copies of Reset Stamp, as mentioned, it's the kind of thing we would expect. And we've got 2 copies of Fire Crystal, lets you grab 2 fire energy from your discard pile and put them in your hand. It is a staple of these fire decks that we see. 2 copies of Great Potion is slightly more unusual, lets you heal 50 damage from your active GX, still a very, very nice card. And we got 3 copies of Switch to get your Pokemon in and out the active. Now we got 2 copies of Tag Call here, lets you search for 2 tag team cards, but you're playing a bunch of tag team Pokemon and a bunch of tag team supporters, why would you not play Tag Call? We have a single copy of Energy Spinner, lets you search out 1 basic energy, but 3 if it's your first turn going second, so you only really want 1, so if it is your first turn going second, bearing in mind you can search it out with Green's Exploration, and it's getting you that energy you need for cards like Welder. It's looking pretty gosh darn good. Then we've got 3 copies of Quick Ball. As mentioned, it is your Pokemon search. 3 copies of Professor's Research, a great supporter. 2 copies of Vitality Band to do a little bit of extra damage. And 12 fire energy to finish off. Again, this is a really, really good deck. And the thing to remember is, no, it doesn't look exactly like the Reshiram and Charizard decks you're used to, but one thing you have to bear in mind here is that it's not a pre-rotation deck, it is a post-rotation deck, and not everyone is currently playing post-rotation. All of these cards, I really don't think I've missed any here. They're all going to survive the rotation, which means that when the rotation hits, you're going to be able to play these decks and have a legitimate, viable deck out of the box. Something that we've not really had in Pokemon kind of ever. There was that time they put Gyarados in a theme deck, and you could buy 2 of them and mash them together with a few other cards and kind of make a competitive Gyarados deck. But let's be clear, it wasn't as simple as just, oh, okay, yeah, no, you buy this and you can play it out of the box. It really wasn't. You did have to buy 2 of the theme decks and combine it with a bunch of other stuff. This is just absolutely brilliant. These, for the price, are just absolutely ridiculous. My advice to you, if you have all of these cards already, fine. But if you don't have all of these cards, go and buy these 2 decks. Because the thing is, buying both of these decks, you'll have more than a playset of Professor's Research and Quick Ball, And you'll have playsets of stuff like Pokegear and Welder and Green's Exploration. You'll have your Jirachi, etc, etc, etc. And even if you don't want to play these exact decks, you're going to have so many staples. Like, we get excited about theme decks that have good staples in. This is basically a deck made of staples. It is utterly ridiculously over-the-top brilliant. And when I say, oh, these are the best theme decks we've ever had, that's not me, trying to be a little bit clickbaity or trying to reel you in. Honestly, I have undersold how good these decks are for the amount you pay for them. And compared to the other theme decks we've had in the past, these are full-on proper job ridiculous. And whoever it is over at the Pokemon Company making these, and I do have a suspicion as to who that is, has done a wonderful, wonderful job with these, and we should all be absolutely delighted. But ladies and gentlemen, that's enough of me gushing over these decks. I'd like to know what you think about these, so, let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WasiPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.